Johan, hallo, gaan dit?
Oh, goed.
Lekker man. Ons het nou nog nie make-up gedoen nie, maar dit sal nou volgende keer doen as dit nodig is.
Ja.
Cool man. Hoe moet ek op silent sit? Dit is my voorreg om saam met jou hierdie ding aan te pak. Ek hoop dit is 'n groot sukses en dat dit die verskil maak wat dit kan maak.
Ek glo so.
Lekker. Cool. Johan, tell us about your childhood, where you were born and how you grew up.
I was born in Cape Town, in Bellville. I stayed there the first 8 years of my life before we moved up to Joburg. My dad worked for a big corporate company and he got a position in Johannesburg, so we moved up to Joburg. And from there on, we stayed in Randburg, an area called Randburg in Johannesburg. And I finished my primary school in Randburg, and then also my high school career I also finished in Randburg before moving to the next stage of my life.
And any brothers and sisters, the rest of the family?
Yes, Paul, I've got an older brother. He's 3 years older than me, so currently I am 39 years old. My brother is 42, and then I've got a younger sister who is 27.
Okay, like that. How was your relationship with your mother and father?
Paul, it was good. I grew up in a home. Both of my parents, they each obviously had their own personalities and way of just guiding us in life. So my parents were married until my father passed away in 2013. My father was working very hard. I could see that, just thinking back of the times we were together, he was really working hard and giving us an example of what hard work was. So we'll dive into my relationship with him a bit later. And then with my mother, I had a very good relationship with her, since I can remember. She's always been there. She's also always been one of my biggest supporters. I think, in every area of my life, whether at school, whether it was sports, whether it was friendships, whether it was anything I competed in, she always thought that I was the best and that I could be the best. And that's one thing that she also taught me in my life, that everything's possible. If you put your mind to it and you work hard, you can reach your goals. And still today, my mother is currently living in Cape Town. I'm in Joburg, and we do have a very good relationship.
Okay, awesome. Tell me, what are you doing at the moment? How do you occupy yourself during the day?
Well, after school, I went to Stellenbosch. I studied in Stellenbosch to become an accountant. So I was in Stellenbosch for 4 years, finished my accounting degree. Then I did articles at one of the big 4 firms in Paul. So I finished my accounting. I was in auditing for around 7 years before I started doing my own thing. So currently I'm a financial advisor. I work with individuals, with small businesses, and I give advice on investments, on any financial matter. I must say that's one thing that I really enjoy in my life is my job. I enjoy going to work. I enjoy spending time with people and helping people, with their finances and structuring solutions, which will hopefully one day pay off.
I'll jump ahead a bit. When did Jesus become a meaningful part of your life?
Well, I grew up in a home where in a traditional Afrikaans home where we always went to church, and I think we always did the right things, but I always longed for more. I during my times at church and during my times at Sunday school and during all the different church camps we had, I knew that there was a God. I knew that Jesus was there, but to be honest, thinking back, I don't think I never really had an authentic relationship with Jesus. So when I was studying in my second year at Stellenbosch, I passed all my subjects and I did what I had to do. But things wasn't going very well in my life at that stage. I think I was either drunk or high every night. So it was a difficult time for me just to fall asleep in the evenings, just because of a lot of things and a lot of things that went through my mind at that stage. But I remember one night, a guy that's a very good friend of me now, Ben, I was on my way, walking outside of the residence to go and smoke a joint, just to fall asleep again. And this guy came from in front and he asked me for some time with me and three of my best mates at that stage. And I went to call the three friends, but I was quite irritated with this guy because, I had a friend of mine waiting for me in the car to go and take a drive and hotbox his car for a smoke. So I called the three friends and we went into my room, and I was still wondering and bothered by this guy. I just didn't know this guy. I've never met him. I've never seen him. And he started sharing the gospel with us. So I remember that my three mates at that stage, I think immediately they started crying and gave their lives to the Lord. So later that night, within 5 or 10 minutes. But I only heard that later because I walked out of the room. I didn't really want to have anything to do with that. So I went and I smoked my joint and did what I needed to do and fell asleep. But I think it was a week or two after that. So every single night I couldn't sleep. I was just crying and things were going through my head which I never knew I had in my head. So obviously something bothered me. And I think the second Sunday after these three friends of mine got saved, they invited me to church and I went to church. And there I could really feel the Holy Spirit for the first time. Being active and moving in my heart. So at that stage, I remember, I think it was in May 2004, in Stellenbosch, in the Nielsie, the student center there in Stellenbosch, where I gave my life to the Lord. And from that day on, I'm definitely not looking back. From that day on, the Lord has done amazing things in my life. He's really helped me through a lot. He's blessed me with a lot, and I think that's really where I really started to have an authentic, personal relationship with Jesus.
Okay. Then tell me more about your relationship with your father. What impression did he leave on you?
Well, he had quite a big impact on my life. We had an interesting relationship. Interesting in the way that we did spend time together, but we never really emotionally connected. He was always there, in the evenings after work, at some of my games, at some of my sports games. But we never really connected as I would have liked. And I think there's a lot of men that I've spoken to over the past few years since I've met Jesus, who's going through the same things and who went through the same things. So I think, just to maybe summarize it in short, we had a very difficult relationship. I think it's something that I always longed for more. I always longed for connecting with my dad much more, which never happened. We never really had the chance to go into that relationship.
You mentioned that he passed away 2013.
Yeah, so he passed away. He passed away in 2013. I was in just the 2 years before that. We were in Amsterdam, staying there, my wife and myself. And when we came back, he had cancer before we left. And then, when we came back, he told me that the cancer came back, and I think it was about 6 months after that he passed away. So we could never really build the relationship that I longed for. But That's the relationship we had. So difficult, if I can maybe explain it in a short sentence. For me, it was difficult. I don't know if he knew that it was difficult, but yeah.
Tell me, are you married and do you have children?
Yes, Paul. I've been married to Melissa. We got married in 2011. It's an old high school girlfriend of mine, and we got married in 2011. We're very happily married, and we've got 3 kids. So I've got a boy who's 8, and then we've got twin daughters who just turned 6.
How has the experiences you had as a child growing up impacted you being a father and a husband?
I think quite a lot, Paul, because I think from my mother's side, as I mentioned earlier, I had very good support, but never really from my dad. So it's I ask a lot of questions, from different people. I've got a few people in my life that I really look up to. I've got a few mentors in my life that I really look up to, and I ask them questions because, having 3 kids also in such a short time. We had 3 kids within 17 months. It was a huge challenge, and during that same time we had some business difficulties which we faced. So it was difficult. It was difficult being a dad and being a husband and running a business, starting my own business. Just losing my dad 2 or 3 years before that. No one who could really guide me and give me just general life advice. So I must say, sometimes it's to be honest, it's really difficult. Sometimes I think a lot of men will associate with what I'm saying out there is that things don't come easily. I mean, we don't get a handbook for life, and that's how we as men should live, or guide our children, or guide our wives. So for me, I do get a lot of input from spiritual fathers, from other men. I like to just to be with men and to ask them questions on how they do things, and then that's where I get a lot of input.
And Men's Wealth, when was this dream born in your heart?
Yeah, Paul, it's something that I'm very excited about. It's I remember I just told you when I got saved in 2004. When I got saved in 2004, I think within the first 6 months of being saved and knowing Jesus and just being so excited about the future, was that I started having dreams of serving people in prison. And I phoned a few guys, and I got hooked up with a prison ministry down in Cape Town in Paarl. And there I started serving high criminal case guys, guys who did horrible things. But there I just saw the brokenness in men. I realized that it wasn't a big difference between myself and a lot of guys in prison at that stage, and a lot of the guys were my age, but a lot of these guys, they just didn't have the opportunities that I had. They just didn't have any father at all. So since then, something has really stirred in my heart to reach men and to speak to the hearts of men. And then just as we got the kids, I think it was 2018, 2019, when spending time with the Lord, of just what should I do with my life, and what should I, what can I do? And it was just as if the Lord was telling me to speak to the hearts of men. And it's never left me. So at that stage, I decided just to park it a bit, just to make sure that it's not something that I wanted to do, but that it's something that's really coming from the heart of the Lord. And since then, regularly when I receive any prophetic word, or when I spend time with the Lord, as if the Lord is telling me to speak to the hearts of men. So that's where it was born. And today, I think from 2019, when I heard the message clear from the Lord that I should start something for men and to speak to the hearts of men. It's almost 5 years now since that word. So I'm just so excited and so glad that we're actually starting with Men's Wealth.
How do you envision Men's Wealth evolving and contributing to the lives of men in the future?
Paul, what I feel, and also by speaking to men, I meet quite regularly with men and have difficult conversations with them, an honest conversation with them. And I think that, or I do see that there's so much confusion for men out there today. There's so many men, they're not sure who they are. They've got no identity. They've got no rock, they've got nothing which they stand on. They're like waves or like wind, just being blown back and forth. So there's nothing what they stand for. And with Men's Wealth and with the word that I received from the Lord, what I hope to achieve and what I truly believe that we will achieve is to speak to the hearts of men. So we'll be having interviews with men. There's blogs that I'm gonna write, and other guys which I'll also get some input from. And all of these videos and podcasts and blogs and all of the things that we're trying to do with Men's Wealth, we've got one purpose, and that's to speak to the hearts of men, to really see that their identities are getting rooted on Christ, and for them to become a better father, a better husband, and a better business leader.
Cool.
Great.